Good afternoon, everybody. Today is the 25th of March. It's exactly 2:30. We're in Cary, North Carolina at the 40th Annual CALLERLAB Convention, and this session is talking about beautiful basics, using the BASIC program. If I could ask anybody that's got cell phones, pagers, iPods, Game Boys, video games, or anything else that makes noise, please put them on silent or turn them off altogether. Stun? Well, yeah, anybody carrying those things, shut them off. All right. Our panelists today, on my immediate left is Betsy from North Brunswick, New Jersey. And on my far left is Tom Roper. Sorry? Tom Miller. My apologies. The paperwork I got had Roper's name on it. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to start with Tom. It did. We're going to start with Tom. And no, that was starting on Tom. We're going to. Here's Tom.
No, that's not a problem, George. Anyway.
Actually, I'm gonna interrupt for a minute. Tom Miller is our most recently accredited CALLERLAB caller coach.
I didn't know that.
It's on my paper in my packet.
Oh, evidently you got a different piece than Walt did, with Tom Roper's name on it.
No, not that paper, a different paper.
Oh my goodness! Everybody doing all right? Welcome to CALLERLAB. Let me see a show of hands, and let's start with this, and this will kind of give Betsy an idea of what we're looking at. How many people here has a basic program at their home area? Okay. The next question would be, how many people call like one-nighters, fun party dances? I don't like one-nighters, but party dancers. So where we use just a handful of basic calls. Well, this session is designed, it's called Beautiful Basic. And what we want to do is just show you some ideas and talk about some ideas. And if any given time throughout the session here that you need to get into a square, we're not going to do anything with music or anything like that. We're just going to talk about different things and what we can do with just a handful of basics. If you have a basic or a mainstream list in front of you, you see there's two lists. There's a basic list 1 and the basic list 2, and then of course you have your mainstream program. You can do a whole heck of a lot with just a handful of basics. But when you do your party dances, and I've sat back and watched over the years a lot of callers do basic programs or party dances. They think they have to teach the grand square. They think they got to teach the swing throughs and things like that. What was that? Okay. So I hear ringing. Yeah, it's a new patter record. And the thing of it is the reason they're teaching the calls that they're teaching is so they can be comfortable in doing what they do at that particular level or the particular calls that they have taught. There's no reason to go out and bombard the newer people, if it's a party dance, with a whole heck of a lot of things in one night. We could pick apart 4 or 5, maybe 6 calls and call comfortably for a good 2 hours with those limited amount of basics that we have as our tool. Now, when you think of the basic calls and not doing the swing throughs or the circulates or the trades or the grand squares or anything like that, we can just start thinking about promenade. And everybody, just for a second, think about promenade. We only teach 1 or 2 things out of the promenade family. We got normal promenade, of course, everybody promenade, or we have a star promenade. But we never think about doing, at the fun level type easy basic program, showing the newbies or the new folks, whatever you may want to call them, the four ladies promenade inside. Because if they don't know how to swing, why do we do a four ladies promenade inside or four men promenade inside? So we can have the men promenade around the outside. We can have the girls promenade around the outside. We can have everybody promenade. We can have single file promenade. We have star promenade. We have a left-hand star promenade. We have a right-hand star promenade. Now think of that promenade and how many things we've covered just in a short period of time of doing just that call. So now if you'd put it into perspective and put everybody into the square and just do promenades, you got yourself a good tip, maybe 2 tips of material right there, just with promenades. Now what's nice about the promenades and saying the star promenade is that takes us into the next level of stars. Look at the stars that we can do. We can face our partner and make a right-hand mini star, turn it full turn. Face your partner, do-si-do. Face your corner. Without even doing the alum and a left, face your corner, make a left-hand two-handed star. Back face your partner, do-si-do. And there's a reason behind all this. If you're teaching a class, this is a good way of getting people start moving into the direction. Like if you have a left-handed star with your corner, a two-handed star, what comes to mind in your head right away? An alum and a left. And you're really not teaching. What you're teaching is the direction how that call works. So now when you teach the arm turns, you already have basically the meat to the alum and a left already a foot in the door, so to speak. So when we think of stars, we have the two-handed star. We could have head two ladies make a right-hand star or a left-hand star. We can have the men. We can have the side ladies. We can have the head couples make a right-hand star or left-hand star. Side couples make a right-hand, left-hand star. And as you're doing this, you're building the foundation of your house. You never want to put the roof on top of the house first. You want to build the foundation and build it to where it needs to be. So let's talk about stars. Now let's assume that we just have the head step in and face the corner. Okay, and now we can make our right-hand star. Everybody knows the star routine. Make a right-hand star, heads come back to the center, turn your star by the left back to the corner. Okay. Well, now we can kind of dissect that apart a little bit. We can have everybody make a right-hand star, heads come back into the center, turn your star half. To the other outside couple, make a right-hand star, turn it full turn, come back into the center, turn that star half, look for your original corner, do-si-do, whatever you might want to do. Or you can make another right-hand star routine and continue doing your stars. So now so let's build the foundation that we've started. We got our promenades, and we got our star promenades, and we got our stars. Not necessarily meaning that the stars are going to come after the promenade. It's just what we've talked about here so far. So, and we added a do-si-do. You can do a do-si-do. Of course, you got your circles. And you got your circle right and your circle left. You got your single file promenade. But we always say circle left and reverse back, circle right, single file. Is everybody agreeable to that? Why don't we ever say circle left and go single file? And the reason I say that is because backtrack comes to mind. When we say reverse back to the right, single file, what do we have the girls do most of the time? Backtrack. But why can't we circle to the left and have the boys backtrack after the single file promenade? Because then you go back to those arm turns. You can come back to your partner, turn your partner by the left, do-si-do your corner, come back to your partner and promenade, whatever it might be. So you can see the building block of what you can do. Now, with the 4 or 5 little calls that we've had so far that we've talked about, there's at least an hour of calling that you can do with those basics. As a caller, it's up to you to think outside that box and look at what you can do with that call. But it's the way that you've been taught over the years, or maybe what been watching some other caller, to how he or she has presented this, and that's the mindset that you think that this is the way it has to be done. What I like about the stars and the arm turns is that it gives us that building block to maybe go into the transition into another call. For instance, I could have the head two ladies make a right-hand star. Go back to your partner. Side ladies make a right-hand star. Now I'm going to come back and revisit the head ladies. Head ladies go into the center, make a right-hand star. But look at the boy across and pick him up into your left hand and bring him back home with you. What did I just get done doing without even saying the name of the call? A flutter wheel. And you can do the same thing with boys make a left-hand star. We don't have to spend a whole lot of teaching for newer people. The idea is to get them dancing. Let these people dance the basics the way that they were designed to base. You know, we don't have to, and it's a great way of teaching too, because I can come back and do this on a night and just dance that for 3 or 4 weeks, and by the time, if I'm teaching a class, by the time I want to get into a flutter wheel, guess what? They've already learned it. It's already been done. So my job is very, very easy. Another nice thing too about the flutter wheel is and when we talk about promenade, let's have the headman make a left-hand star, pick up the girl across, and then promenade halfway around the outside. That becomes not just the command, but the timing issue as well. This is where you have to know where your timing is, because if you have a flutter wheel, they're coming back around, and then you say promenade halfway, they have to step back and then go out around a square. Where if you do a reverse flutter wheel in perfect timing, you can promenade around the outside, and you'll see the dancers be very successful with that. Does everybody see that? Shake your head yes. Okay. Is there anybody that doesn't see it?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I was going to say, if you don't see it, go and we can get people up and dance it.
Okay. All right. So we have promenades. We have the circles. We have 4 people can do a circle, 8 people can do a circle, 2 people can do a circle. We have the stars, 2 people, 4 people, 8 people. You can do a wagon wheel star if you want. Everybody knows what a wagon wheel star is? That's where the boys or girls make a left-hand star or a right-hand star and have your partner step in front or behind your partner connected into an 8-hand wagon wheel. And then you can have the girls backtrack or the girls roll back, do-si-do your partner. It's something that you just don't want to get up to the microphone and start calling it. Work it out on a piece of paper or work it out with your checkers or your computer, whatever you're using for your management. So we think of arm turns. We have our partner. Okay, this is a recorded session, so we need to get you on microphone, okay?
On the wagon wheel setup that you just had, how would you start that? Because I've never seen that. So would you have the men go in and star first and then the ladies slip in, or do you have them all get together at once? How would you set it up?
That's a great question, because I've never done it either. I would do something like this. I would have all the girls make a left-hand star, and then all the boys step in behind your partner, make a left-hand star, and there's your wagon wheel star. And you can have the girls turn their star a full turn, the boys step in behind. You have your left-hand wagon wheel, then you have the girl roll back to your partner, do-si-do. And then you can repeat it. You can make a wagon wheel go the opposite direction. So it's just a different way of moving dancers. What's nice about this is the stuff that we're talking about, you can take it back to your club and just do this, and it's going to be a completely different feel for these dancers. Whether they're plus dancers or mainstream dancers, it's going to be a completely different feel because it's something that they've never seen, like the wagon wheel and things like that. So we look at the how the flutter wheel happens with arm turns, because there is an arm turn that's involved with the flutter wheel. We have our stars, the routine stars. We have our promenades. You're just not limited to promenade a half or promenade or all the way around a square. You can promenade a quarter. You can promenade a half. You can promenade 3/4. Then your circles would fall into place, a circle for a 3/4 or a quarter or a half, depending on what you need to do. But it's something that you can look at to give the dancers just a completely different perspective of how some of these calls truly work. You could have all the girls go to the center back to back, men promenade around the outside, see your partner. Let's see if this comes to mind, anybody. Turn your partner by the left, look for your corner, turn your corner by the right, go back to your partner, turn her by the left, and square your sets. Does that sound familiar to anybody? It sounds like a do passo. And you notice the do passo always ends with the courtesy turn. And you notice I didn't say courtesy turn because I haven't got to that point yet. I haven't taught a courtesy turn. So I just say turn your partner by the left, turn around and square your sets. Girls, turn around. You don't have to do the courtesy turn. The thing of it is that you don't have to do a whole lot of teaching to do a lot of these calls. And you can get these dancers moving quickly. And you can also have the boys back to back in the center. Girls promenade around the outside. You can do a whole lot of stuff. You know, girls meet your partner, face your partner, do-si-do. You know, you can do all kinds of things. With do-si-do, you can do half a do-si-dos, and you know, it's just letting them dance these basic calls. I mean, we go in and we call do-si-do, and it's over with. It's gone. We have heads promenade halfway. How many times in the last 3 months have you heard heads promenade 3/4? Interesting. How many has never heard promenade 3/4 in the last couple of months? It's just something that you don't see, or you don't hear, or you don't think of. There's many times on the way home from a dance, I'm driving a 2 or 3 hour drive home, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I never even called a boys run, or I didn't do an 8-chain 4. Or I start thinking of calls I didn't call. But the next time that I'm calling off of that basic, you know, whether it's plus list or advanced list, you know, I'm thinking, wait a minute, you know, I missed these. I should have been doing these things. So how many's ever thought about heads promenade, reverse promenade? Heads reverse promenade halfway, come down the middle, reverse flutter wheel. Think about it. Just visualize that in your mind. You got the body flow, it becomes a timing issue, the command becomes important. And what are you doing to the dancers? You're giving them something that they can be successful. Now, because they're not familiar with it, you could have a degree of difficulty for a short period of time until they get used to what you're looking at. Wheel around is, does anybody know the number of that? 38. What is it? 38. Number, thank you, 38. You know, we teach wheel around all the time as everybody promenade, heads wheel around. Is everybody agreeable to that? Okay, so why can't we have the heads pass through and wheel around? Is there a reason we can't do that? It gives a completely different feel for the dancers. You know, you could have the heads promenade halfway. You could have the sides wheel around and promenade halfway. It's just that little different thing. Now, because of the wheel around and because that we're always doing it from promenades, guess what happens? They're always going to go the wrong way. So you have to tell them, think of the courtesy turn, because that's what a wheel around basically is without all the bells and whistles. Is a courtesy turn without the bells and whistles. So you think of a courtesy turn, it's the sweeping to the left action. Okay? So that's what we're looking at. So there's just a whole lot of thing that you can do with wheel arounds. Now, so let's go to our building blocks. We did stars, promenades, circles. We threw in a flutter wheel because of the arm turns. We called it do-si-do. We called a do paso because that falls back onto the arm turns. We talked about a wheel around on what we can do and how we can move the dancers. Now, visualize yourself calling just those 6 or 7 calls for 2 hours. How many people here thinks that they could do that for 2 hours, calling those 7 or 8 basics? How many people would think that it would take them a little work to do 7 or 8 basics in 2 hours? Here's the catch with that. You could go home and you could set and write 4 hours of 7 or 8 calls of material. In other words, material for those 7 or 8 calls. And you get to your dance, and it may not work out the way you want it to work out. So you have to have your guns loaded, ready to go, so to speak. What do I need to do to get those dancers to be successful? It worked at home in my computer. You know, it looked good on a piece of paper, but now since I have the real bodies in front of me, it's not working. So, and I got 2 more hours to go. So what do? We have to start thinking real quick. Now, not saying by the end of the 2 hours, the material that you've taken your time to work on those 4 hours might work because the dancers are getting comfortable for it. If you're dealing with new dancers, and this is the first time they've seen any of this, you're going to be perfectly fine. But if you're dealing with dancers that dances plus and mainstream and they get something like this, they're not going to be comfortable with this. This is like testing the water, so to speak, for you to see what you can do to give something different for these dancers. But everybody says, and I hear this all the time, why I can't call this. I can't call this. But yet the same person or persons is taking party dances. So what are they doing for 2 hours at a party dance? So that's a question that I've always asked. If they say they can't do this, why are they taking party dances? Or why are they even teaching a class? And that's exactly, they need to do that to get into a singing call. The thing of it is, let's talk about the singing calls. We could take these same 7 basics, and you should be able to do a singing call every tip that you call at your fun dance or your basic dance, whatever you may want to call. So if there are 6 tips happening in 2 hours, you should be able to do 6 singing calls. So let me see a show of hands again. How many people think that they could do 6 singing calls with those 7 basics? How many people are not sure? How many people don't care?
And remember, they don't have to be interesting and exciting singing calls to you. Because to the dancers on the floor who have a limited vocabulary of calls, the fact that they succeed makes the whole thing interesting and exciting, and the music is important to them.
You know, the thing you got to remember, too, is that at the beginning stage of square dancing, or if it's a party dance, you don't have to do a corner progression every time you do a singing call. It's okay to keep your partner throughout the whole singing call. There's nowhere written in a book that says you have to do a corner progression or a right-hand lady progression call. There's nowhere written. So you could do a singing call by keeping your partner all night long. I know with my high school programs that I do, and I know I talked to Mike Callahan about this, depending on the grade level, I mean, like if they're 4th and 5th graders, I don't change their partners. But at the high school level, I do the corner progression. And at the high school level, I'm getting all the way through Ferris wheel in a short period of time. I mean, I'm doing all of these calls within a week's time, but they're 84-minute periods, 4 periods a day. And, you know, kids are like sponges. So this stuff, if I was to go to my high school and call the stuff that we talked about today, it would become one of these things for these kids. Because they've seen differently. They've seen, you know, the meat and potatoes of the basic list. So I guess as a square dance caller, and it's our responsibility that if we take if we take a booking and so forth for a party dance, or we take lessons for a club, we have to do our homework. We can't shortchange the dancers. We have to do our homework and make sure that these people are successful. And the thing of it is, as Denise said this morning in her motivational speech, she said, you want the dancers to keep coming back. And if these people are going to be just drilled into the ground and taught 25 or 30 calls in one night, and you're trying to attract dancers, guess what? They're not going to come back. Because they think now, it's a mindset that they think that they're going to learn 25 calls every week. And people are just not going to do that. But if you build that house, and think if everybody would teach this way, they'd build that house slowly, how sweet that would be. You know, it's simple. We're not pushing anybody. And there's just so much ground to cover with those little basics that we can do. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, thanks for coming. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Tom Roper.
Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hello, my name is Betsy Gata. I'm from New Jersey. I am sure that I'm from New Jersey. I'm sure that my name is Betsy Gata. I have a handout. There are paper copies here. It is also on your CD or your disc that you got, so you can take some notes. But there also is a printed copy or a printable copy. Now, this is my personal feeling. I truly believe that here in the U.S., especially, we have not taken the basic program to heart. It's a stepping stone to get through as fast as possible to get to mainstream or plus where we're comfortable calling. I'm speaking for a lot of callers in the U.S. You may not be amongst those callers because you folks are here in this room. But there are a lot of callers in the U.S. and dancers who have taken the programs that CALLERLAB put together, which were supposed to be guidelines, and they've turned them into status symbols. That's human nature, and especially here in the States, we have our status symbols and we love them. So you hear somebody go, I'm a plus caller. Yeah, I don't want to be bothered calling mainstream or basic. I'm a plus caller. And no offense to anybody, but it is harder to call a really good dance the fewer words of the vocabulary that you have to use. The folks who call advanced and challenge and plus have it easier once they have a knowledge of those programs. That's easier because they can reach for this or that tool rather than going, oh, I got them into this position and how do I get them out? Because I could do this, but they don't know it. And I could do that, but they don't know it. And I could do this, but I can't think of how to make that work to get them out back to home. Oh my. So so the fact that you folks are here and letting us talk to you about calling basics and calling with a limited vocabulary is important to me because I think that's one of the problems that has contributed to the loss of new dancers. You know, it's too long before they're dancing. Excuse me, but expletive, explanation, they're dancing as soon as we have them circle left and circle right, as long as we bother to play some music. And that's part of it. We should be playing music and knowing how to move people with a limited vocabulary. So what I decided to do for this particular panel was to challenge myself. I have some senior citizen basic groups that I call for in a regular weeks, and my home club is mainstream, but every other tip is somewhere usually in the basic program because every other tip that we have is wherever our new class is. We started, and I'll talk to this more about the teaching outside the box, but we basically started doing our classes 1 hour before the dance, and then every other tip at the dance is wherever the class is, the other tips are mainstream. That means that my co-caller and I have to be able to call interesting and exciting tips that will involve the club members as well as the new people, because it's an all skate. It's not new dancers get up here, experienced dancers get up here, everybody gets up together, and we want to keep them all moving. We have to know how to move people with a few calls. So I decided, and I'm really comfortable with the whole basic program up through Ferris wheel. And if you're not sure, if you've looked at a CALLERLAB list, there's the first column, and then there's a second column. And the first column is basic 1, and the second column is basic 2. That finishes with Ferris wheel. The third column starts with cloverleaf, I believe, and finishes with recycle, and those are the calls that are on the mainstream program. And there were lots of copies of the list outside on the table for you to get. So if you're not sure, go take a look at the list. So I decided to challenge myself and use just the first column, basic 1, because I like and use a lot of calls from basic 2, so let's make it hard for me. So the problem with calling basic in any type of program and making it feel like a dance is that we have mindsets to call certain things in a certain order. We say swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, boom, boom, boom. There's no problem with saying that. It's like a little sentence that we use all the time. And if you take away some of the vocabulary in the sentence, all of a sudden you're like tongue-tied. It's like, I can't do that. What do I do? And all you can focus on is the call that you can't use, rather than focusing on how can I get them from here to here. There is a film that has been shown that had to do with learning, people who struggle with learning. And they took college people, professional people, other folks, and they took away a certain word and said, now you have to make a sentence explaining this. And no matter how much education these folks had, because you took away part of the words that they would use, you were stuck. They were stuck. So let's focus on how much we have available with just the first column of calls. I took a group of modules that were from our caller school, and let's see if you know, they're on the sheet, but let's see if you can tell me, could we use these calls from the basic one, just the basic one, the first column on the list. The combination is star through, pass through, bend the line, star through. I see lots of heads nodding yes, and that's correct. We have all of that, and that's common. We use those all the time. That's comfortable. Next one, star through, right and left through, pass through, bend the line, star through, right and left through. Are they all on the first column? So that's a bunch of combinations that we use all the time. Touch a quarter, center circulate, end circulate, boys run, square through 2, trade by. First column or not? I see a bunch of no's, and you are correct. The touch a quarter is on the second column. Boys run is on the second column. The circulates are on the first column because we moved them a while ago to make things comfortable. Around 2009, the CALLERLAB, they were developing, trying to make it less historical for basic and more danceable. And the calls, the circulate family and veer left and right were moved from further down the list over to the first column so that we can call at basic 1, head couples lead right, veer left, couples circulate. It feels totally comfortable to all of your dancers because they do it all the time, and all the new people can do it too. And the trade by is also on the second column. Okay, and we're assuming they've done the square through 4. All of these were starting, I think, from 0 boxes. Split the outsides. Separate around 1 to a line. Star through, California twirl. Yes or no? Yep. Split the outsides. Separate around 1 to a line. Box and at, slide through. Slide through is the one that's off. Slide through is actually mainstream. It's on the third column. Split the outside, separate around 1 to align. Pass through, U-turn back, star through. Yep. So out of these 5 original modules, we can use 3 of them immediately. And one more, I modified the next to last one, the one that had the boxinette and the slide through. I modified that for the last module, which had pass through, U-turn back, and star through. Gave me the same result with minor modifications. The problem is that we keep thinking, I can't do that. I'm stuck. So I mentioned that we changed things. Now, after calling the common problem, common pattern, mouth is now working. Heads lead right, veer left, and couples circulate. What else can we do? Because we're used to calling Ferris wheel after that. I would guess a lot of us. Bend the line. Okay. Chain down the line. Yes. A lot of the times we might call girls trade and bend the line. Chain down the line will get us the same end result. It will have a different flow. But that's the sort of thinking that we need to do. I can't do this. What else can I do? I have a group that, as I said, at a senior center, and I have never taught them circle to a line because they dance on carpet, and the maneuvering in the correct circle to a line scares me to death. I don't want anybody tripping as they're backing up a little bit or anything like that. So I use circle left 3/4 to get to lines. Okay, now I have a look on the list. The next thing that I have you doing is look on the list and see which calls are available that are lesser used. And I'm basing these ideas on what I know from experience that callers in my area don't use. Obviously, I haven't traveled around the country and danced that much, but I suspect a lot of it is the same. I find that callers often neglect to use arm turns, backtrack, Tom mentioned that, half sachet, split 2, separate around 1 or 2, and come into the middle. Dancers can't do that anymore. It used to be common. Before we had the call square through in existence, and I'm really old because I remember that. What we did to get callers, thank you, Tom, he agreed. What we did to get dancers to that position that you can get from head square through 4 was, say, heads pass through and California twirl, same couples pass through, separate around 1, come into the middle, sides close back up, and pass through. And that was what we used to maneuver the dancers so they ended up at the end of where a square through would be. So what I'm recommending is, the other ones come into the middle, left square through. It's on the first column. We know, supposedly we have to teach it later because it's tougher. But if you're only going to be using that first column, then you can teach everything on it. Dive through. Nobody likes dive through anymore, but it can be useful and it can be fun. Once you've looked at these calls, you need to pull out your checkers. And I recommend pulling out your checkers because I find I have a computer program that helps me do choreography that I use somewhere in the hundreds of call vocabulary for challenge. And I find that I can make dancers do things that I cannot get this computer to do at basic. So pull out your checkers. Push them around. Get some ideas. For example, what did I say? For example, static square, head square through 3. Separate around 2 to a line, creates a half sashayed line of 4. If you do a pass through and a U-turn back, you have a standard line, a small 0 line. Once you've pushed the checkers, you can see that you can resolve this by calling star through, dive through, centers pass through, right and left through, and Alaman left. And I did push checkers to do that. A lot of times if I'm calling, I will just kind of maneuver the dancers and go, oh, look, I've got the Alaman left. But it's always good to have things written out if you're using a shorter vocabulary so you don't end up with your mouth saying the things that you can't say. Because trust me, if you go into automatic pilot, you will call from the whole list. They're doing so well, you just go, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
You also get names wrong when you're on automatic pilot.
Oh, okay.
I meant me, not you.
I understand. And now I want to talk about the calls that seem to be blocked by the fact that the calls we normally use to get into the position from which we do them aren't on the list. If you look at the circulate family, we have single file circulate, column circulate. All 8 circulate single file. However you deliver that call, you know where it is. You got a column of 4 people facing one way and 4 people facing the other way. About 99% of the time they're holding right hands with somebody who's facing the other way, and they all move forward one spot except for the end dancers who run into the next spot or fold over and loop into the next spot. But how do you get into that? We all call touch a quarter to make the column. From lines of 4, you touch a quarter. How do you get them into a column without the touch a quarter? And one of the ways I found is from lines of 4, star through, pass through. Girls, you turn back. Gives you a right-handed column. If you have the boys you turn back from there, you'll have a left-handed column, which is really cool. It's different. All your experienced dancers are going, I'm going the wrong way. This is funny. I can't do this. I'm going uphill. However you want to say it. But star through, pass through from standard lines, and one gender or the other turn around will give you the column. So now you are not blocked in your use of column circulate because you can create the column without touch a quarter. Okay. You can create a wave easily from lines. I would probably have them pass through just because it's in my comfort level and have one gender or another turn around. It doesn't give you a, quote, standard wave with the girls or boys in the middle. It gives you a wave that goes boy, girl, boy, girl. That's okay. And then you can have the ends circulate, and you can have the centers circulate. And then you can have somebody turn around and you got some sort of line and you're back getting safe. So the idea of my presentation is to get you to look at what we have within a certain limited number of calls and maybe push checkers and get the idea. If you're calling a dance at a club that dances mainstream, call one tip where you don't call the full mainstream program. I can guarantee you that 98% of the dancers on the floor will not be able to tell you which calls you didn't use as long as you keep them moving smoothly. They won't be going, she didn't call swing through. She didn't call boys run. She didn't. They'll be moving. They'll be busy. They'll be having fun. And that is the thing. But until you become fluent in using the language with a limited vocabulary, it won't feel like a dance. And then they'll be going, you're not calling out what we want. So you need to make yourself fluent. Practice. If you're teaching classes, of course, this is a great way to practice because they don't have the whole vocabulary. But try and make sure that you don't have to teach every tip in the evening and you can practice bringing them up to speed. One of the problems with new dancers is we who are teaching them are either need to teach too much, so we have to keep teaching and teaching and teaching and teaching, and they never get a chance to practice, or we're not comfortable enough to call with what they have, so we can't bring them up to speed. So when they come out to a club dance or a beginner dancer dance, a student dance, they're not anywhere near up to speed because we kept giving them extra time. And that's why singing calls are important at basic, is so that we can give them singing calls. There's no leeway in a properly timed singing call. Now let me tell you that my early singing calls at lessons are not properly timed. They are what I call short-timed. They're maybe, instead of 48 beats and a 16 beat for a swing and promenade, they may be 36 beats and whatever, because the dancers who are newer don't have the reaction time. You can tell when you can change figures by when they get home and are looking at you. If they've started dancing faster than what you're calling, then you need to up your calling. But it's important to get the dancers comfortable with the early part of the program. In order to do that, you need to do it. And you need to be able to change figures in your singing calls. This will take practice. This goes back many years ago, but I still cringe. I was teaching a class for a club upstairs, and they were doing their beginner class downstairs. I was getting a glass of water. As I was going back up the stairs, I heard the teacher for the beginner class use the phrase, "I'm going to teach you wheel and deal so I can use this next singing call." How much failure was going to happen in that room? I did not do what I wanted to do, which was to go back and dump my water on his head, but I cringed, and I still to this day cringe. That caller could not do a singing call with a limited vocabulary. Another friend of mine told me his sister was learning to dance, and it was 2/3 of the way through her classes before the caller told them, "Well, you folks are now ready for a singing call." It means that he or she, and I don't know what it was because my friend did not tell me, he was very politically correct, but it means that caller couldn't do a singing call until they got to the one, all the calls that were on the other side of the record that they had practiced and memorized. It takes work to do this, but it is immensely important to the future of our activity. And I thank you.
We still have quite a bit of time left. Comments, questions, things from your own experience? By the way, please be sure to tell us who you are and where you're from.
Trevor Day from Manchester, England. One of the things I find when, particularly with new dancers on there, the first time when you're doing progressions on there, I always find it much easier if you've been doing the sequences which come back to their partner, pass through, swing the next. It's a right-hand progression that is on there, but I find on there that you have much more success in that than trying to do corner progressions. Just a thought.
Tom Sellner from Maryland. In my first nighters, I always have the visiting couple type of, it's called Southern Circle, where one couple on the inside visits the next. I can do everything that Tom had in squares, and they haven't even been in a square. They haven't had to promenade anywhere other than to the next couple. I can also later, this is the second dance maybe in my class, I'll have them, instead of having Southern Circle, I'll have a pass-through type where I go on to the next. And I could repeat the same program looking completely different from the night before. And then the third night, I could be in squares. Or I could, do that in any order I wanted to. So all these things can be done. It's change of formation. And when I start out in doing any of my basics, if I can just change the formations that I'm doing them in by facing directions or whatever, doing a right and left through from a square, doing a right and left through for a line, just as an example, and later on working in columns and things like this, and then two-face lines and learning and just vary my formation, not more calls, just vary what they're looking at. And you triple what you already have with just a few basics.
Does everyone understand what Tom meant by a Southern Circle? Okay, so how many people have heard the term Sicilian Circle? Okay, a Southern Circle is to me, is a variation of a Sicilian Circle. Back in the South, they would make a big circle, and the couples would number off 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and the ones would lead out and dance with the twos and then move on again. So it's a similar sort of thing. It's a circle of couples facing couples, which you can do different patterns and then have them pass through and move on to the next. Am I correct in that was what you were meaning, Tom? Go ahead. He wants it back.
You don't have to tell us who you are twice.
Okay. What I simply do at my first nighter is I have everybody promenading in one big circle. and I have them back out and circle. And if I'm not doing very much at all, I'm just trying to need to keep them in the circle, either I don't have enough couples or ever to make squares yet, I will just have one couple step into the middle and face the next couple on the inside of the circle, and then the next one, and I'd alternate all around. So now I have a very even thing. And these people on the inside now have a normal promenade. They just practice promenade. On the inside, if they go on to the next couple, all they're doing is a normal promenade to the next couple. So they get to practice promenade, and they get to meet every half the dance. So in the first tip, I get them to introduce everybody to each other. They get to shake hands, and I add that into the dancing. A couple dos-a-dos, a couple stars, two-hand stars, left-hand stars, dos-a-dos. Then I can even add swing if I want to, but I don't have to yet. But you can see, and then later on I can go and do the other circle where you pass through type on a different night, a different thing. But that's what a southern circle is. Just a plain circle with one couple stepping in the middle and being on the inside facing out toward the other people. And the insiders do the promenade, one to the next couple, and they visit around one to the other. It's very effective.
Mike Callahan from New York. Tom was talking about the promenades and the stars. One of the things you can do is you can have the head couples promenade all the way around while the sides make a right-hand star in the center, and it works out real good. Another thing, if you want to do a little visiting couple things with stars, you can have couple number 1 go to couple 2, make a right-hand star, change hands, make a left-hand star. Couple 2 go to couple 3, make a right-hand star, change. And it flows real nice as you go all the way around. I use that a lot with stars.
More comments, questions? Anybody?
There's a dance scheduled tonight.
Tell us your
Carter
name.
Ackerman.
Tell us your name, Carter.
Carter Ackerman, State College, Pennsylvania. My question is, what's that dance going to be like?
I believe it's. I have. Okay, my mouth is now working. I have got a group of callers scheduled. We're going to do patter and singing call using the basic program. It's not a beginner party type dance as much as a dance that would be for the basic program. People who dance basic. So we'll be using the calls up through Ferris wheel unless one of us goes on automatic pilot and slips.
Next question, comment, ideas you want to share? One of the things that CALLERLAB is currently doing, in fact it's just happened this convention, is there's a new subcommittee in the mainstream committee. It's a basics committee. That committee is not going to deal with definitions or positions or things like that. What the mainstream chairman has asked us to do is to gather ideas and suggestions and things like you've been offering here today. Bear Miller, the mainstream chairman, has asked me to chair the basic subcommittee. My vice chair is Doc Haraga back there in the middle. And we're going to be looking for contributors. Send us your ideas. Send us your suggestions. Okay. If there's no more comments or questions, Betsy, you had something?
Well, what were you going to do if there weren't comments or questions?
Sorry, say it again.
I said, what were you going to do if there wasn't?
I was going to finish.
Okay. I was going to make sure that we talked about the fact that we keep talking about, I'm going to preach. We keep talking about, hallelujah.
Can I pass the collection plate when you're done?
Sure.
Okay.
We keep talking about the fact that we need a shorter entry program. Oh, we need less calls. We need to get people in and dancing. We need less calls. Folks, to my mind, we have the tool right there on that list if you use column 1 or column 2 to create a shorter entry program. We have that. What we need to do is figure out a way to pool our resources, because a lot of people in existing clubs aren't going to go for a basic club. They're going to go, I dance plus. I dance mainstream. And so we need to figure out how to have dances that would be accessible. with the basic program. Maybe you take the folks who are all the students and you pull the people in your area and have a basic dance. Maybe you're going to lose money. But ultimately, if you let the people dance and get comfortable using the basic program, we don't need to create a new list, but what we need to do is have the dances, let the people have fun, and maybe we'll keep them instead of running them right through class and out the other side before they're ever comfortable enough to come with us. There was a caller in New Jersey. Unfortunately, he moved and retired and found a place to live where he no longer calls. But he had a basic club. He decided to create a basic club, and he was able to make it more interesting. It got to be the hot place where to go. And it didn't matter what program people danced. When he was having his basic dance, there were a lot of people who danced mainstream, and there were a lot of people who danced plus, and there were some people who danced advanced, who had fun at that club and came on a regular basis. If he can do it, then others of us should be able to. Maybe we need to get together. But as I said, pool our resources. No, the one without the wires.
You had something you wanted to say, Tom?
Roy Gotta, the other half of the lady who just spoke. And one thing Betsy forgot to mention is when he created this basic club, it was in a central area and there was a lot of other clubs around it, mainstream, mostly plus clubs. And they eventually started sending their dancers to the basic club when they reached that plateau so they could practice. And consequently, when that club was in existence, the surrounding clubs were noticing that their membership was no longer decreasing because their students, since they had the practice, just stayed. And they eventually, maybe some of them stayed and danced with the basic club and others didn't, but as they progressed through the rest of the lessons with their clubs that they started with, they were better dancers, so they stayed because they had a place to practice the basic. So even if it isn't a, quote, club, if it's a place for them to practice, the clubs in the surrounding area are going to be better off for it.
Can I say one thing? I know there has to be somebody in this room that are sitting back saying, I don't think that I can, do what I've heard today, or it's going to take me a long time and to understand and how to do things differently than I'm used to doing. It's very simple that if you want to try to do different things with the stars and the promenades and you're just not sure, just ask. There's somebody in your area. There has to be a traveling caller coming through. And I know that I can speak for myself and Betsy that we're always there, because we do our caller school and so forth, and we tell our students that even though we finish our school on Thursday, the education continues for however long you want to do it. We're always there for questions. And all that you have to do is ask. And I know for myself, just last week at the Washington, D.C. Festival, in the higher level, I had a question that I needed to find an answer for, and I went right to Betsy. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that I went out and asked the question. And I was looking for the answer because I wanted to make sure, because someone asked me the question, and I told him, I said, listen, I'm not sure. Let me find out, and I'll come back to you. I went out and asked the question. And my question was to Betsy is, how do you do this? Or is this part, a part of this movement, whatever it was, I can't remember what it was anymore, but I remember, but anyway, my point being is that if you find yourself not understanding, or you get yourself into a rut that you can't think of what else you can do, just pick up the phone and call somebody. Whether it's an area caller, whether it's, there's all the media out there. There's Facebook, there's emails, there's telephones and cell phones, and find somebody that you respect to to ask the question to find out what you do, or maybe even this. What do you think about this? Am I okay in doing this? And it's nothing to be ashamed of. So if you're not sure, ask.
What was it, our speaker's point today? Number 4, ask for help, keep learning.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay. How about a nice thank you for our panelists, Betsy Gatta and Tom Miller. Thank you all for coming. Next session in here is a sneak peek session at 4 o'clock.